Joining us right here on ET Now is TRAI Chairman R.S. Sharma. He's come out with very, very path-making recommendations as far as net neutrality is concerned. This will determine how you and I use internet going forward. Some myths will be broken, and thank you very, very much, Mr. Sharma, for joining us right here on ET Now with your views. But I want to first understand the principle of what you do, and please indulge me because this is a technical matter for the benefit of our viewers. I'm going to keep it simple and break it down into very simple terminology. So thanks, very much for doing this interview. But I just want to understand, when you say that internet is an open access platform, what in your recommendation ensures that there will be no discriminatory pacts that telecom operators can enter into?
You see, one of the principles which we have upheld, or which we have kept in mind, which is an overarching kind of principle, is that internet is an open platform. Especially in the Indian context, where a lot of innovation, a lot of government services, a lot of things are riding on the internet, and therefore it must remain an open and non-discriminatory platform. So what we have done is that the access providers, internet access providers, should not discriminate the access of the internet resources in any manner. Whether by way of pricing, that in any case we had already blocked, sort of prohibited in last February. Also by way of throttling or accelerating or blocking. None of this the TSPs will be able to do. That's the broad principle.
Indeed, and that I'm sure will be a welcome move by all of us who want to use an internet without discriminatory issues. But you have very categorically said that this will require changes in licensing regime. What sort of changes will those be, sir? And this of course requires legislative changes, if I'm not wrong.
Let me put it this way, that the licenses, the unified licenses which have been sort of issued to the service providers, they do mention that the service providers will provide unhindered, non-discriminatory access. But essentially what we are saying is that they need to be fine-tuned in this new world of internet, where we are saying that all internet access services must be non-discriminatory and provided without any kind of discrimination by the service providers.
Oh yes, indeed. So will you help me explain, when you say that this does this include all content, and I'm presuming specialized services will be kept out of this? My question to you really is, what are those specialized services and what is the rationale of keeping those out?
See, there are a lot of things which are happening today in the information and communication world, right? So internet is certainly the most important sort of platform which people access to get all kinds of services and informations. But there are certain specialized services which have been kept out of the sort of purview of this, because these services essentially they do use internet protocols, but they are the services which have specific quality of service and which are essentially special kind of agreements. So let's put it this way, that you have the internet, let's say remote surgery, you are doing a remote surgery. Now that's actually a critical service which is a specialized service. You have enterprise-wide connection of offices which are carrying out communications on a voice over internet protocol. So these are some of the specialized services, automated cars, for example. So what we have said is that those for example, if you are connecting a particular server to get a particular information, and that's a one-to-one connection, that's a specialized service. So these services, obviously, because internet is a service which is on best effort basis, they are not really point-to-point services in that sense of the term. And therefore, these specialized services have been kept out of the purview of these net neutrality kind of provisions.
My only question to you, sir, is when we are carving out these closed user groups, really, do we run the risk of discrimination on account of those, discrimination on account of the quality of internet otherwise?
No, yes, that's right. Those specialized services must not be essentially, as a substitute for the internet access, which is, these are two specific conditions which we have given. One is that these specialized services should not really be a substitute for normal internet, number one. And number two, if some entity is providing internet services as also the specialized services, then it should not happen that the specialized services end up degrading the access of the normal internet to its customers. So these are two specific kind of provisions which have to be kept in mind.
Sir, just want to take things forward, and you very categorically also stated previously that there has to be a distinction between exclusion versus exception. For the benefit of my viewers, will you help us explain exactly what that distinction is and what's the rationale for that?
Absolutely, I think it's a very good question. You see, exclusions are the ones where if you are creating a, let's say, a net neutrality framework where in general nobody should be able to sort of differentially treatment different traffic on the internet, and nobody should be able to block or throttle or provide fast lane. This is essentially the broad principles of net neutrality. Now, obviously, these principles we are saying that they will not be applicable to certain specialized services and even content delivery networks, for example. So that's one part. That is, exclusion means essentially that there are certain areas or certain services on which these net neutrality principles do not apply. The exceptions are essentially, it's like this. Let me give an example for your viewers. Let's say we have created a toll road. Now, if there's a traffic jam on the toll road, the toll road providers will have to make arrangement for ensuring a smooth traffic. So essentially, what happens is that these pipes or the internet access pipes are like toll roads, and a lot of traffic is flowing through them. And therefore, if there is an issue, they have to provide traffic management practices. So these traffic management practices are essentially exceptions. So they will have to do that. Similarly, there may be some emergency services which the government in certain situations may have to sort of ensure their delivery. There could be a legal blocking of the content on the internet. There could be court orders. So therefore, these are the exceptions which will have to be taken into account. And essentially, the traffic management practices are the most important ones. Let me also say that we have also said that there should be complete disclosure. So these traffic management practices should be transparent, and they should be transient. Transient as in when the situation demands, then and only then they should be applied. And there should be perfect disclosures about these things by the TSPs as to when did they apply these practices and what were the effect on the user experience of application of these traffic management practices. So I hope I have been able to explain as to what we mean by exclusion and what we mean by exceptions.
No, yes, you have been able to make that distinction. I think it's important that it's come from you instead of being left to interpretations. I just want to understand, just for the benefit of our viewers and for my own benefit, when you say disclosures are important, what about content delivery networks which enable TSP to develop content? Is it okay to leave them out? And does disclosure really take care of that exemption or exception, if I may?
No. They are not. Content delivery networks are not the content developed by TSPs. We are not talking of that. We are essentially talking of situations where there are very many websites or portals where, for the purpose of ensuring a good user experience to their customers, they put their content on the content delivery networks, which actually sometimes reside within the TSPs networks, within the sort of before the in the non-internet area in some sense. So these networks, actually the content delivery networks perform a function which is essentially to facilitate the access of the internet by everybody. It's not discriminatory in that sense of the term, and we have devoted a couple of pages on this issue as to why content delivery networks must be excluded from the framework of the network neutrality.
Fair point indeed, sir. Sir, you've also set up a committee on network management, and the industry believes that this will add a lot of bureaucracy to the whole system. Why do you believe this was essential? Why do you believe it was necessary?
I don't know which committee you're talking about. We have basically said that all these practices, if there are violations of net neutrality in terms of, throttling or blocking, which is not really permissible under these provisions, then for, that purpose, and also, overall monitoring and supervision of the enforcement of these provisions, we have suggested a multi-stakeholder body which should actually do that, and this will consist of TSPs, ISPs, academia, and civil society organizations, NGOs, these all multi-stakeholder body. So that's what is being proposed for, and of course the Department of Telecom will have to take a call on that.
So one of the questions also is, when you look at developed markets like the US, and America has taken a more market-oriented approach to net neutrality, which is in contrast to what you as a regulator and what the authority has taken. But are you convinced that this is perhaps the best way going forward, at least for an emerging and a developing economy like India? You can't have market forces drive net neutrality here.
No. It's not. It's not anti-market forces. I don't know how you got that idea that the proposals which we have given is anti-market. In fact, what we are saying, we are essentially separating the pipes from the content, and we feel that internet is an extremely important resource. And as you know, if you have 10% penetration of internet growth, then it grows GDP by 1.4%. That's the World Bank study. So I think what is important from our perspective is, for our country, what is important is to ensure the openness of the internet, on which a lot of government services, e-governance services, digital India is going to happen. And therefore, without commenting on what the United States of America has done, what we are saying is that we have crafted out, or we have made these recommendations keeping the interest and the best practices of India in mind.
No, and that's fair. I mean, we are developing markets, our needs are different, and as a TRAI chairman, I think you have to cater to Indian market. But two quick questions, sir, before I let you go. Why do you believe this multi-stakeholder group that we spoke about for monitoring net neutrality, why do you believe this should be led by industry?
No, it's not a question of monitoring net neutrality. We talked about exclusions and exceptions, right? And these exclusions and exceptions could be, exclusions part, we have clearly said that Department of Telecom may notify as to what will be the services which will be, what is called specialized services. On the exceptions part, which largely relates to traffic management practices and other exceptions, we have said a multi-stakeholder body should certainly be able to, because you see, the point is, if we create a one-time body to do this exercise, or create a set of rules, these rules may not be valid because technology is developing. So in a developing technology situations, you cannot really hard code the basic rules as to how this whole thing will be governed. So therefore, what we have proposed is that a body which is multi-stakeholders, and there are examples of these bodies. For example, in the broadcasting sector, we have created a body called BARC to do the measurements of the television viewership and other things, and that's also a multi-stakeholder body. So this way we feel that a multi-stakeholder body will be able to monitor and effectively redress these issues in a much more efficient manner, and in a much more progressive and kind of technology, because they will have to utilize a lot of tools to do this. So that probably is best left to a multi-stakeholder body.
No, you're right. I mean, BARC that governs us is also a multi-stakeholder body, and it has worked rather well. But, you spoke about Digital India, sir, and that's obviously the Prime Minister's big ambition. That's this government's big main hold. You as IT Secretary was also a big part of this. But won't these recommendations divide or continue to wedge this divide between the haves and the have-nots? I mean, what about some good services be allowed discriminatory? I'm just purely speaking from a common man's point of view.
No, I mean, I didn't understand the question. What do you mean by good services? How do you differentiate what is good and what is bad
Sh-
for the consumer?
I'm just
Is it
saying
the
that when you're
consumer who
making those
decides,
exceptions,
or
is
is
it?
it somebody else who decides?
No, absolutely. It has to be the consumer who decides that.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
sir, exceptions for
essentially
blocking
the
under
crux of the net
international
neutrality
treaty.
is that let the consumer decide
Yes.
what to. Yes, certainly. So
Go ahead, sir.
essentially we
Please
have
go
made
ahead, sir.
those classes as the exceptions where, among other things, other things, which is the a court's order, or international treaty obligations, etc., etc. These are the, or emergency situations. These are the exception situations. On the issue of consumers, you are saying, ultimately the whole focus of this is to give power to the consumers. It is the consumers who must decide. It is not, I mean, let me give you an example of a toll road again. Telecom service providers are like toll road providers, right? So once they build the toll roads, they get paid for the toll. So whichever car or the truck or whatever vehicle flies through them, flies to the roads, they get money for that. So whatever data flows to the telecom pipes, they get paid for that. Now, what do I watch, or what do I access the site on the internet is really not concerned. Telecom service providers should not be concerned with that. And that basically is the power which is in the hands of the consumers. They should decide as to what they want to watch, what they want to see, what they want to access.
All right. One last question, sir, before I let you go, and that comes in from the telecom operators, the telecom lobby, and they believe that they've been reeling under a lot of pressure. In fact, an interministerial group has been set up for a lifeline. They believe they set up these mega networks, they sink in a lot of money, and then you have the OTTs who come in to ride on them. They're crying foul. What would you say in defense of these recommendations to telecom providers who believe they've got a raw deal?
No, I don't think they've got a raw deal. I must honestly say that this basically takes care of all these stakeholders in this process. I do not see why this particular provision. This is a natural provision. You see, the point is, as I gave the example again of the toll road providers, telecom service providers are getting the money for the data which they wheel. So where is the complaint?
All right. On that note, it's a pleasure chatting with you, sir. Mr. Arish Sharma, India's telecom regulator, the TRAI chief, in conversation with us on a day that the TRAI has recommended